here. Can everyone see my screen?
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, great. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Fullen. I'm your ARMA New England Marketing Director. I'm also a solution sales executive with Access. And since we're sponsoring today's meeting, the board has graciously offered me a few minutes to talk about Access and what we do. So a little bit about Access first. Access is the largest privately held records and information management company worldwide, and we operate in over 130 locations in North America. And here's a visual of some of the solutions and services that we offer. I really like this slide because not only does it show the wide group of categories that our services and solutions fall into, but it also shows that we support records management over the entire life cycle of a record. And so that life cycle starts with information governance and our services around retention schedule development and maintenance using our cloud-based retention schedule manager Virgo, of which John Azaza is actually on the line here. He's a co-creator of the platform. And so Access can support your information governance program by helping you ensure that every decision that you make in the remainder of that life cycle is compliant and defensible. And from here, we have offsite storage, scanning and digitization, digital document management, and finally, secure shred and destruction. But what really sets us apart is how we leverage these offerings to help solve our clients' unique struggles. We work with our clients as a trusted partner, and we really intend to be an extension of your team. And so Access can help you address challenges to protect and manage information, destroy outdated information, enrich your record skills and programs. And this is really all to help you mitigate risk, save money, and increase efficiency. And so where my focus lies with Access is our Virgo solution. And so again, Virgo is a secure cloud-based solution for retention schedule management with global regulatory coverage. And with Virgo, you can manage your retention and privacy policies. You can get continuous updates to relevant legal and regulatory requirements that are performed by our team of in-house attorneys and paralegals who are experts in information governance. You can create a data map to help inventory private and critical information that you need to protect. And you can publish your retention rules across the organization. One of the big features that we recently released is a connector to Microsoft 365, and you can publish your retention rules as retention labels with that. And you can easily inform employees, auditors, and regulators with consistency through Virgo's read-only employee portal and robust reporting functions. And just to wrap up, again, I'm Tim Fullen. I'm your ARMA New England Marketing Director and a Solution Sales Executive with Access. So here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out with me if you have any questions, anything at all, really. If I can't answer them, I'll get you in touch with someone who can. I can be your guide to Access. And thank you again for giving me some time to come speak. And I'm going to hand it over to Colin now.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I just realized, the name Access you can play on that word, similar to the name Epic. I work for Epic, so your guide to Access, I think, is what you just said, and I thought that was kind of funny because, as we talk as an employee of Epic, it comes in as sounds a little weird too sometimes. But thank you all for joining us today. I'm very excited about today's topic and our speakers. Just some level setting, and then we'll get into intros. The subject of disruption and acceleration, for me anyway, really started, there was a book written by the author, Thomas Friedman, he wrote it in 2016, which is when I read it. It was "Thank You for Being Late, An Optimist's Guide to Thriving in the Age of Accelerations." I found it fascinating, and this is in 2016. 2020 has totally blown that up and really brought it to life. So I thought it's something that we should really start to talk about. Some definitions, just to sort of set some of the guidelines here for the conversation. Mark gave a definition already of disruption, and I'm going to add one as well, and they're pretty similar. But I think the the term disruption from a business sense really started to come into vogue around 2014. And it's been defined as a process, product, or solution that disrupts existing rules on an industry, market, or economy. Okay, I think some examples of that over time include things like electricity, right? Light bulbs, radio, photography, personal computers, the internet. You get the sense these are all, like a lot of these things we're saying are technology related, and technology has certainly been one of the accelerators of all these and products and services of the disruptions. So COVID has certainly disrupted all of our lives, the economy, healthcare, and how we all use technology and information. One other term just to define, and we hear this all the time these days, right, is digital transformation. So that can mean a whole lot of things, but for this conversation, let's frame it. Digital transformation being defined as a radical rethinking of how an organization uses technology, information, and processes to fundamentally change business performance. That is a definition that comes from the MIT Sloan School of Management. So we'll take them at their word on that one. I also wanted to just point out why this is so relevant, or one of the reasons why this is so relevant. Back in July, CIO Magazine did a survey on digital transformation. The results of their survey showed that 59% of IT decision makers have found that COVID is accelerating their digital transformation efforts, including the spend on digital transformation related technology and services, where they predict that that's going to increase by 10.5%. So the global market is about $1.5 trillion. So that's what they're predicting it's going to grow to next year. So a lot going on. This is certainly a meaningful thing, and we couldn't be happier and luckier to have two of the industry's top experts, Julie Colgan from Epic and John Azaza from Access. So I will let both Julie and John introduce themselves. I'm sure most of us already know who they are, but just in case there's someone who's been hiding under a rock for the last 20 years, they can come out and get to know John and Julie. Julie, you want to start first?
Sure. So hi, everybody. Julie Colgan. I know many of your faces already. Happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Always love having a chat with Colin and John. Currently work at Epic, but I've been in the information management world for, I'm just going to say, over 20 years. We'll just stop there. In lots of different roles. I've been in-house, I've been in the federal government, I've been in private business, I've been a consultant, I've been a practitioner. I've kind of been on every side of the table, which has been helpful in my career to appreciate kind of all of the different facets that need to come together when we talk about things like information governance. So I'm a past president of ARMA International, past president of the Atlanta chapter, the South Carolina chapter, lots of different things that I've participated in over the years. So, personal to me, it's important to give back. And so any opportunity that I can have to share some nuggets that might help somebody else, I want to do it. So happy to be here.
Yes, and thank you, Julie. It's a pleasure to co-present with you. And I've been at it for over 30 years. It's nice to see how people like yourself have come up through the industry, and now I'm so proud to go present with you. Speaking of being proud, I do want to thank Tim Fullen for inviting me in particular to be in this presentation, part of this very interesting discussion. I do have to mention, when we were talking about names, Virgo actually stands for something. It stands for Verified Information Retention Governance Online. It's not that by coincidence that my co-founder is a Virgo. It's just that it actually stands for something. So it's kind of cool. And, you were talking about disruptive technology, and I was thinking about what we did with the creation of Virgo. And I think that we were disruptors because between us and just one or two other vendors in this space, we've created the ability to take all these laws that you guys were managing through a bunch of Excel spreadsheets and now have it as a single point of truth where you're not only managing the laws and the retention schedule, but also your repositories and your inventory of content types and all that. And that's, to me, disruptive within just our little space of records and information management. Finally, I want to say it's a very impressive turnout that you've got. I just did just literally came back from doing a 3-hour presentation for another ARMA sponsored event, and there were only 6 people there. So I see 36 here, so that's 30 more than showed up at my last session. And that was a 3-hour workshop. But in terms of background, you guys know who I am. A couple of interesting things to note about me. I chair the Privacy and Consumer Privacy and Data Analytics Committee of the American Bar Association. So I am definitely on the cutting edge of privacy and information governance issues. And I also chair the IGP. So those are 2 roles that sort of keep me on my toes and try to keep me sort of relevant in what we're doing when we talk about disruption.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Thanks, Julie. We'll get things going. Our first question, we'll send it first to Julie. Just a couple months ago, there was a presentation by a couple of the professors at Harvard Business School who made the comment that digital transformation is no longer an option. Thoughts on that? Do you agree? And if so, why? Or if you don't, why not?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think, again, it depends on what you mean when you say digital transformation. I think there's a wide variety of flavors of that. I tend to agree more with the definition you provided at the outset, where it's not just turning pieces of paper into a digital file. It's really about looking at how you use technology and information to change business models, to create some new value in a market that didn't exist before. And so, from a corporate perspective, I think that's what most folks, most CEOs might think of when they think digital transformation. That's the result they're looking for. And how we get there is there's incremental steps. So changing paper to a digital file is maybe part of that, but I don't know that that's necessarily the end goal. Just for example, one of the things that I talk to clients about is digitizing mail, right? It's a popular thing during COVID. People don't want to go into the office and pick up the mail. They just want it to come to their house or get to them in some other way. And so just moving the process of, I get a piece of mail in the office and I put it in a scanner and I send an email to somebody. So now they have the mail. That's great. That's an iterative step in the right direction. But in reality, how do we get out of the physical mail business altogether? How do we stop getting our customers, our partners, the general public sending us physical mail? Let's look at all of our business process and evaluate where paper is a necessary part of the process and see if there's some other way we can do it, right? So if people are sending you checks in the mail, invest in other ways for them to pay you that are more convenient for them, right? Get Venmo, get PayPal, whatever it is, so they don't have to send you a check in the mail and just cut that process right out. So I think another article that I read was a McKinsey piece maybe a month or 2 ago that was talking about speed. Speed to McKinsey is kind of a key indicator of who will be successful coming out of all of this craziness. And so the ability to pivot and then pivot again and then pivot again as things change is really going to be a way for organizations to take advantage of the kind of iterative change and iterative opportunity in chaotic markets. And so to me, I think if we're thinking about digital transformation as a true transformation of how you run your business, then I think that's true, right? That it is, in fact, at the end of the day, no longer an option if you want to be as successful as you can at the end of the day.
So what I'd like to do is kind of maybe actually do an about face on this whole concept of digital transformation and go back to the core of what's probably most relevant to the people attending the session today. And Jesse heard me talk about this at a presentation I did for AIM yesterday, and that is going back to the definition of a record at the end of the day. At the end of the day, ultimately, we're all chasing after the record. What I want to tell you anecdotally is that a few years back, when I was drafting policies for clients, records and information management policies for clients, I literally would have clients that say, John, if you use the word record in your policy, the policy you propose to us, we're going to fire you. There was sort of this disdain for the word record, this concern that if we used the word record, it meant that you were going to be pigeonholed as a professional into moving boxes from point A to point B. Or, as Julie just pointed out, just simply scanning and imaging paper and converting it to an electronic file. It's so much more than that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, even though it is so much more than that, digital transformation is so much more than that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're chasing that record. Why? Because the record is the first line of defense for what we absolutely have to keep to be able to meet our compliance requirements, our business requirements, and to justify the non-existence of a piece of data or record in the event of a legal hold. And most importantly, the fourth reason, for compliance with privacy requirements that are very amorphous, that say you have to dispose when it's no longer needed. So it sounds like I'm preaching to the choir, but I've gone back and it swung the pendulum in the other direction. And now I'm actively promoting to clients that we should own the fact that there is a record at the end of the day that we need to justify, because of all the data traversing through our systems, only about 3 to 5% of it will actually rise to the level of being a record, so that everything else can be disposed of more easily, redundant, obsolete, trivial information. To me, that's a key part of digital transformation. And to me, that's where we can help to debunk the sort of the fait accompli that the Harvard study you mentioned, Colin, has mentioned, that they've just sort of surrendered. No, we don't surrender. At the end of the day, we're looking for that record. And if we can capture it, then we're going to be golden in terms of being able to accomplish some of the other compliance issues.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You even use a little bit of French, which was fantastic. Thank you, John.
You should talk on aussi.
Hey, I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions, feel free. You can use the chat and post your questions there. Mark Carter is going to be monitoring the chat. He'll bring questions from the chat to us. Or if you'd like, if you're on video, you're brave enough to do that, and you want to just ask, please do. It'd be great to have this conversational as well. So our next question, this one will go to John. Yeah.
I haven't been briefed on what these are, so
So thinking of what are the ways you've seen organizations changing, adapting, and I think that kind of speaks to Julie's point as well around the anticipation of the disruptions and the agility to respond to the acceleration of those. So I'm trying to weave in those topics. So how have you seen organizations align with that strategy? And it could be numerous different ways, including maybe even like org structures. I think we spoke earlier. There are some sort of leading technology companies like Uber and others where they're creating roles within the organization, like chief digital officer or chief process officer. And again, these are all ways that they're trying to align with these changing times. So what are your thoughts, John? What have you seen?
Yeah, so let me start with, again, one personal anecdote, and then kind of transition to sort of what I'm seeing with our customers. Personally, my personal anecdote is in creating the Virgo product, for example, we had to adopt the Steve Jobs model for branding and marketing your product, which was you cannot wait for the customer to tell you what they need. you have to anticipate the need of the customer. So when we set out to create Virgo, we were making sure that we were a step ahead of what the customers would need. Yes, we would listen to what they had to say, but at the same time, we had to say, what's going to go beyond this request? What is the next thing that they're going to need? How open does the platform need to be in terms of the development of the platform? And what other things can we envision for this that our customers would never even dare to dream about being accessible to them 20 years ago when I first started in this industry? What I'm seeing with my clients is I'm not seeing those particular titles that you mentioned, Colin, and I'd be curious to see if anybody in this group has seen those titles. We could mention them again after I finish. But what I am seeing is definitely more of a requirement, and I've seen this actually in job descriptions, that the person tasked with information governance is tasked with understanding technologies and basically seeing what technologies are out there, because you never know what small little company like Virgo could come in and actually be a disruptor, or what other vendor could be out there on the vendor floor. So what I'm seeing more actively is our clients spending more time on those vendor floors. And please don't interpret this as some sort of a pitch. It just means that we need to stay on top of the technologies that are out there to help lead this digital transformation and lead the changes that are occurring, because we have to rely on technologies. Artificial intelligence, Julie will tell you, is underused, and technologies like that, the monetization of the big data, a way for you to add value to your organization by coming up with ways of protecting the organization while at the same time proffering ideas that could take the organization to the next level.
Excellent. Julie, you had some thoughts, and then we can see if anyone has any heard of any new job titles or org changes related to this. But
Yeah, I'd love to know, if there's anything in particular others have seen, where I sit in the clients that I'm talking to, they aren't there yet. I think a lot of the market is still just, treading water, trying to deal with the realities of COVID and what that means in the different geographies in which they do business, and trying to source laptops, because even those are hard to come by these days. And so there's kind of very practical space where I think a lot of organizations are, where I think in the next 18 to 24 months, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more organizations start to think a bit more strategically about all of this. And maybe we do see a proliferation of chief digital officers and chief process officers. I like that one. I want to be one of those. That sounds really, I'm a process nerd. And so I'm, just, it's an advertisement for some years down the road. Anyway, I think it's an exciting time for me, to having been in this business for just 20 years, because I'm only 25. I've been waiting for this day to come. I hate the reasons, many of the reasons that it is here. But here it is. And so I'm encouraged that I'm seeing a much broader adoption of the concept within verticals, in particular, like law firms, for example, who've been traditionally very slow to adopt, slow to change, slow to challenge business models, kind of all of a sudden going, okay, we can't do that anymore. So I don't think we're there yet in a broad sense in the market, but I think we're heading there. I do.
Yeah, last week we hosted in our Access Out of the Box show that we do twice a month, we hosted Richard Hogg from White and Case. And we asked them, because this is a huge global law firm, probably the third or fourth largest law firm in the world. And I said, how did you guys adapt to people working from home all of a sudden, especially all these lawyers that need to have everything in printed form? I mean, it's a habit that just dies hard, right? And he said that he was pleasantly surprised at how much the lawyers accepted. I guess maybe it's because we were in exigent circumstances, accepted this pandemic working from home, and how little requests he was actually getting for printouts of this. So yes, as you said, Julie, you hate to see it being thrust upon us this way, but we really have to look at the glass as half full with the pandemic, and realize, wow, what wonderful test grounds that we had. The ability to test these theories out and have attorneys say, guess what? The world didn't fall apart because I didn't have a printout of my document. And in fact, not having a printout allows me to do word searches within the documents and so on and so forth. So there's all these added benefits to do it. It's just that we have to get old people like myself to get used to be comfortable in that space. And again, I think that leads to the digital transformation overall.
Excellent. So does anyone have any?
You had asked about
Sure.
hearing about other digital transformation roles, and I have seen director of digital transformation, not so much on the officer side of things, VP of digital transformation. So they're definitely out there. I've been seeing them a little more frequently, as well as in our current environment, a lot of change management and diversity officers in the market.
Yeah, Donda, during our preparation, Colin did mention that some of those titles you probably saw at companies like Uber or Lyft, organizations that truly make a living on processing data or the logistics part of it. So it makes sense for organizations to have like that. And the observation that I had was that I will be very curious to see what other sort of highly regulated sectors will actually start coming up with those titles, particularly in the financial sector, the insurance sector, and in the healthcare sector. With all the data being processed.
Yeah, I have actually my old alma mater that I worked for many years was hiring for a director of digital transformation, which surprised me pleasantly because it's been needed for many, many years for them. And I'm starting to see that as in the financial services sector. Insurance has always been behind the times. If you look at a bank compared to insurance, it's always been behind the times. And I think because of COVID, sadly, they've had to really rethink and recharge themselves and get someone in that can start pushing them towards that digital transformation.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you mentioned insurance as being late to adopt. When I said the example earlier about my client that threatened to fire me if I used the word record, it was actually an insurance company, a national insurance company. There are insurance companies out there that are trying to do the darn best to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve, so not to throw them under the bus.
So any other job titles, things like that people are hearing about? I'm going to proactively take Mark Carter out of this because you can't be the chief awesome officer. I know you've been lobbying for that for a long time, but anyone
very
else?
close to it too.
Has anyone else heard?
I've been pitching for vice president thought leadership at my company, and they don't like that title either. They think it's too wishy-washy.
Really? I kind of like that one. Yeah.
Question though, Donda, I've seen the director of digital transformation role as well. And I've seen it for the last probably, 2 to 3 years in particular. But I wonder if you're thinking, most of the ones that I've seen have been in pretty large organizations, relatively regulated organizations, which I love to see, but is a director high enough? I don't think it is. I see you shaking your head, Donda.
No way is it high enough.
I think it needs to be a chief. It needs to be a VP. It needs to be an SVP or something like that to really get where anybody really needs to go. I think if our organizations are thinking about it incrementally, they're going to get incremental results. And I think that's probably what we're going to find, or what we have been finding, right? And so, if that's been in the market for 2, 3, 4 years, and yet we haven't seen the needle move very far, and all of a sudden everybody has to run home and work from home from COVID, and we're just trying to find laptops, we're not there yet. And so I know I've found over the years evangelizing about information governance, it had never got high enough in the organization. And so we got incremental results because we placed it in the middle. And so until this really hits the boardroom, we're not going to see the results that we could if it sat there.
Good news is that there's laws like CCPA, CPRA, GDPR, heavy sanctions that are really prompting a very serious look at the highest levels of the organization. And so you're right, it could be a question of chicken or the egg, where the titles will follow as opposed to preceding.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
So if we start to bring it down from the higher level, you know, the corporate level down to the individual RIM IG professional level, what are some of the skill sets, even job descriptions at that level, that you think would align with these ever changing, evolving times to meet those times? What are your thoughts? So we'll go back to Julie first.
Yeah, so I think the records manager of the future, and then by future, I mean 2021. Assuming I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said, what if 2021 tells 2020 to hold my beer? So we still don't know what's coming, but the records manager of the future is going to be less about handling actual information. They're not going to be handling boxes to and fro, handling files here and there, fiddling with file cabinets. That's just not going to be their role. Their role is going to be more of an oversight role and an education role. Oversight over the systems and engines that will apply policy to content. An educator to the owners of those systems and understanding the context of the information and how to preserve that. And then an educator to individuals, to your point, John. Not everything is a record. Most things are not a record, but there's a whole lot of information flowing throughout an organization on any given day. And so we are going to rely on individuals to understand the nature, the role of their work and the information that they handle and what can and can't be done. And so I think that's where we're going to see the records managers of the future spending more of their time. It's going to be less of a big team and more of a core kind of SWAT team who's, you know, watching blinking lights and, you know, monitoring as much as an information security person might monitor, you know, a Varonis or something like that. You might also want somebody from, you know, the records management side who's thinking about retention disposition, because if something's trying to exfiltrate out of an organization, their firewall, well, you want to know, well, did we need to have that in the first place? So I think we're going to mature in a lot of different ways, and the successful records manager is going to be right in front of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Julie. I think that the one of the most critical aspects of that role that you just mentioned is the disposition aspect. Overseeing disposition is going to become more important than ever. I've already been advocating to my clients to eliminate obstacles to disposition in their policies, eliminate those darned certificates of compliance or you know, asking for permission. It's in the retention schedule. It has to be automated or it has to be done. It's presumed to occur pursuant to the schedule unless through audits or monitoring you find that there isn't compliance. But let's eliminate as many obstacles as possible so that the records manager can do their job and get to disposition at the end of the day. Build rules, help build rules, be very intrinsic part of building rules with the other technology you know, teams, and be active and conversant, learn how to speak the language of legal as well as IT, so that you're not irrelevant when you come in without speaking the language. There's a new show on Netflix called Emily in Paris, and the very first episode is all about how this girl gets transferred to Paris for her dream job, and everybody's making fun of her because she doesn't speak French. Well, you don't want to be Emily when it comes to being the records manager. You've got to learn how to speak the language.
That's a great point. So I think the disposition point, John, is so important. You know, we all know that information has just been growing logarithmically, right? Just exploding. And that's why we have, these concepts of big data and big data analytics. I mean, people are trying to harness and use all this data. And you had referenced Julie's passion for artificial intelligence and auto classification. So maybe, Julie, could you speak to, how that plays a role here, potentially?
Well, I mean, I think, technology is the records management team of the future, right? So I used to run a records management program where I had people who were applying retention and evaluating record status and negotiating those disposition approvals that you spoke of, John. We just don't, we don't need that anymore if we're able to truly harness the power of the technology that does exist today. I found that most application of that technology is minimal in terms of the power and the potential, and it's mostly what I've experienced is out of fear, a fear of allowing the technology to do it, trusting the technology to do it, and then getting out of the way, breaking down the silos of departments as we know them and the people in them, that people have faces, and that gets hard. So there's just been a lot of roadblocks, unnecessary roadblocks, I think. I don't know how, really, I don't have if I had the answer, I'd be rich and I would be retired by now, but I don't know. I don't necessarily know the answer on how to get past that as a general roadblock. I think it's very unique to each organization. But I mean, I worked for a software company for a number of years that has very powerful technology to help understand piles and piles of unstructured data. But no one ever really bought into that concept as part of an operationalized information management program, or very few did. Most of them wanted to use it as a very tactical, problem-solving, project-oriented application of the technology. I think that's where we still sit. Until we start adopting it as a part of our team and a part of our overall business process, we're not really ready to we're not going to achieve the potential that it has.
So when it comes to technology, I guess I do have part of an answer for you, Julie. All we have to do is look at the e-discovery space and how much the use of artificial intelligence has been embraced in the e-discovery space, and how much the courts have actually gone out of their way to give the benefit of the doubt to automated technology, which has actually proven to be more efficient than a human pair of eyes looking for the same kind of data. And the courts have said that the technology is only a small part of it. It's actually the people and the processes and the methodology that was used to arrive at the end results. So we can't sit here and wait for the technology to be that silver bullet that's going to come in and solve it for us. We have to, and going back to Colin's question about job description, job responsibilities, we have to be vigilant as records managers to go out there and identify technologies that can help us leverage in comparison in addition to methodologies and processes and all that, because it's the whole package that's going to be the solution at the end of the day. No one particular technology is going to be a solution. And if we wait for that one particular technology to arrive, we're going to be waiting forever. We already have it now. We just need to use the model that was used in the e-discovery space, where the courts are giving us approval based on the technology, the processes, and the people that are involved, and use that for records management and to take it to the next level.
John, we're in violent agreement here. Like, it's beyond frustrating to me that in the context of e-discovery, this technology has been proven and proven and proven and proven and proven. From a legal risk perspective, it's not the technology that's going to be your problem. It's going to be how you apply the technology, what rules you built into it, whatever. So it frustrates me that message is not getting out, and that we're not, really taking that to heart to say this technology works. We should be applying it in more context, but then I think the key is operationalizing it, right? I'm not seeing, e-discovery is still an event-driven thing. It's not a day-to-day information hygiene kind of thing, but it could be, and it should be. And the courts are telling us the technology is good. You just have to apply good, rationale and good process to it with good documentation, and you'll be golden. So why we haven't done that yet, I don't know. It kind of drives me crazy, just like your frustration with why do we keep asking if it's okay to dispose of something when we have an approved retention schedule? I asked for approval from the organization. You blessed it as policy. I should now be free to go and execute the policy outside of some extraordinary reason to not. And so, I think we're still getting in our own way, not just records managers, but our organizations as well. So there's work to be done, but hey, now we have this external driver and accelerant that maybe can get those conversations going in more meaningful ways.
When we set out to create Virgo in 2011, when we formed the company, we were out there looking to create a tool that would actually help with all that automation. And we looked at taxonomies and different things that could do, because we were thinking we're going to be really disruptive and we're going to create that silver bullet that's going to automate everything. And the fact of the matter is that the technology just wasn't there. So we had to adapt to what pieces of technology we could offer that would be useful. And that's just really the look that we have to take at existing technology. So how do we change the dialogue? We change the dialogue by having discussions just like this. We have 34 people on this call that said, you know what, maybe we need to rethink about that, and we continue evangelizing it. And then we start to come up with more use studies or case studies of people that have used it successfully, maybe in a particular vertical, or maybe for just their HR records, or maybe for just sales and marketing records or something like that. So we have to tout those little victories, and we have to have organizations like ARMA and AIM celebrate those victories so that we can look at them for examples. Jesse, I see you on the call, to celebrate the organizations that are successfully doing some of this digital transformation.
Absolutely. And to connect some of the dots, I think, some of the things we've been talking about. This is a real opportunity for the folks on calls like this, having these conversations. I believe so, to increase our awareness and understanding of all these aspects, and to bring them and advance them within our organizations, within our clients. Again, I think both of you have said this. It's been a frustration for a lot of us for a long time, but this may be the opportunity for this to really start to change. I know we've got 12 minutes left. How are we doing for questions, Mark?
I've seen a bunch.
Yeah, actually, not a lot of questions, a lot of correspondence going back and forth, but Ruth did ask and was wondering about training and resources that are available to continue to build the needed skill set within our industry. And then how does one go about getting that training? That was one question that popped up. The other one was from John, and it was pretty much a comment about NARA and COVID and all that sort of stuff. So it was more of a comment, but only really that one question.
So let me answer the question. I did a presentation with Andrew Isasi, and we did a presentation for the ARMA InfoCon on comparing the CRM versus the IGP. And I do believe that those certifications are a great way to build your foundation. And the way I see it is, so the IGP, in my mind, in my view of the world, the IGP is sort of the overarching sort of, for that person that aspires to sort of break the glass ceiling, wants to have kind of being an overseer of the different verticals that report to the IG professional, right? So then there would be a deep dive with your CRM. So that will give you the skill set around the records management aspect of your career. Then there's the IAPP that will give you certifications around privacy and everything that you need to know. It's probably the most comprehensive resource out there around privacy. Then there's your ACEDS certifications that take you into the legal vertical and legal holds and things like that. And then there are also certifications around data security. So any one of those sort of verticals could really help deepen your understanding in those 4 key areas: the CRM, the IAPP, the ACEDS, for example, and the one for security, which the name is escaping me right now.
Hey, John, since Jesse's in the phone on the line, you may want to throw the CIP there too.
That's right, CIP. Right.
Yeah, and I might add kind of traditional IT, looking at something like an Asaka. As you're really going to have to, talk to true technologists who that's where they came from, that's their bread and butter, understanding kind of the frameworks and models that they rely on every day to keep all the blinky lights blinking, will really kind of smooth your conversations with them and create a tighter partnership. So, for most of the records managers I know that have, kind of come up through the information management, records management side, privacy and pure technology are the 2 most lacking areas I've seen. So, if it were me, I would probably recommend focusing on those 2 things if you don't feel super confident there.
Oh, and one thing, speaking of Jesse's and AIM's certification, and I said this during the ARMA presentation, I think that the CIP is a wonderful certification that has a little bit more of a bent to the technology side. And I think that if you feel that there's a weakness on your technology, I think that CIP route really could help ramp you up a little bit faster.
Great question, Ruth. So while we're on the technology topic, and we're on a Zoom call, right? So all these changes that we're all going through, working remotely, all the different platforms for communicating, there's information there too, right? And this question will go first to John. It's really about what are your thoughts around what are the challenges and how do we start to manage this information that's being created by working in this new way?
Yeah, well, you have to realize that, we have more power to declare what's a record than we think. Just because we're creating all this data doesn't necessarily mean it rises to the level. My hotel wants me to leave. So I'm going to mute for now, and I'll come back to this. Maybe Julie can address this while this announcement goes away. Oh, never mind, it went away. So what was I saying? We were talking about, I forgot what I was saying.
The information, the new platforms may not.
Yes. So, yeah, just because we're generating information from it doesn't necessarily mean we need to keep it. So our clients are pretty much very mindful that when it comes to this type of media, the retention on this, if anything, should be very, very short. If there is officially a recording of a session, maybe 30 days to keep it around for people to watch it. But for it to rise to the level of a record, it would be very hard. It would have to be like a board of directors meeting where they want to capture the minutes or something like that. But even then, I think that you can carve it out so that you're not inundated with these things, these recordings that take up so much space in your systems.
How about communication platforms like Slack and WhatsApp, things like that? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, those have been a real challenge for organizations for years. And what we've done is we advise them to the extent it's possible. First of all, the ideal situation is for it to have it be a company-sponsored use of the technology. Because if it's a company-sponsored use of the technology, then you're able to put controls on what can and cannot be done with it. So the object of using those technologies is to facilitate the communication and not necessarily to turn them into records repositories. So you want to be able to strip out of those technologies the things that's not the primary purpose for why people are using it, but they're just using it out of convenience. So strip out of it the ability to exchange records. Instead, maybe to share links, but not necessarily to be exchanging actual documents on those platforms. When it comes to employees that are going rogue and using technologies that are not approved, which we know is an issue with, for example, WhatsApp, where people are trying to figure out how to use, in sales or in marketing and all that stuff. So what we try to do is, through the policy, discourage them from using technologies that are not approved by the company, but at the same time saying, if in an emergency you do have to use a technology such as this, just know that it shouldn't be considered a record and you shouldn't rely on it at all to document a business decision.
Yeah, I'll throw right on top of that real quick. I don't know exactly how many years email's been around, but we still haven't figured out how to manage it well. And I worry, I really, really worry, because I see signs of it, that things like SMS, Slack, Jabber, Teams, whatever, are just the new email. So John, I appreciate what you just said, is just don't give them the ability to turn it into email, where it's this system of record that no one intended and nobody really wants. And it's just a horrible source of unnecessary risk to the organization and cost. So I worry about that. And so I wonder if we're adopting new communication tools like a Slack, because email is so inefficient as a communication tool, because nobody uses it that way anymore. Our tendencies are, people are creatures of habit. We're going to fall back into that. And so, a certain amount of diligence is required. But again, it goes back to why I think one of the major roles of a records manager in the future is training and education and re-education and re-education and re-education, so people don't fall into those habits. So we are catching it early. We are nipping it in the bud, and we're giving them the right tools for the right purposes without any capabilities they don't need.
That's all. I don't know if you saw this, Julie, but Jesse just posted it. Emails that had its 50-year anniversary, which is terrifying. And to your point, we still don't know how to deal with it, right?
Thanks, Jess. Made me feel old.
All right, only a couple minutes left. Questions? Anyone, please?
Yes, we're relying on Mark, but
How's it looking, Mark? We get 12 on chat. 12 chats.
That is it. Just Jesse's great comment. And people just leaving early, that's all.
okay, Jesse pointed out that he'd recommend that you take notes and declare those as records. We don't film and record in-person meetings, so why do that with Zoom, right? Yep, I agree, Jesse.
Meet space and digital space, Jesse. I thank you for that. It made my day.
Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. It's so much fun to have these presentations where we get to talk ad hoc, as opposed to a PowerPoint presentation, which is what I just endured myself doing for 3 hours.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks to all of you for your time, and John and Colin and Mark for putting up with me for an hour.
Likewise.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is great. I could keep talking to you guys for hours, so really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, everybody. This will get posted on our New England site with access to our YouTube channel. So thanks again.
Thanks,
Okay.
take care.
Bye.
Be safe.